Our show is on the road today. We talk about the booming craft beer scene. Well, this is one of those areas that's completely blowing up. This is the famous Brewers Row, Murray Street in Port Moody, one of the epicenters of all the good things going on in beer. Stick around. This is BC Brew on Tap. This is BC Brew on Tap. We're on the road in Port Moody. The road is Murray Street. This is the famous Brewers Road, which we've heard so much about and talked about on the show. Vern Lamborn is the brewmaster as well as part owner of this fabulous establishment. Sam Payne, same. You guys have been around this game a fairly long time, so you've seen the whole BC beer scene completely blow up. Why Port Moody and why now?
Well, a bit of selfishness going on, Joe. I live out here. I've lived out here for about 14 years. I love it out here. I don't want to go into Vancouver on my commute.
But as you see the scene, and you saw there was already 3 brewers in the area, did you guys have any concerns? Did you think, geez, maybe it's already tapped out, or what did you think?
I never did. I mean, obviously, neither of us thought it was tapped out because we did it, and we're here now, and we're grateful to be here. I mean, the community's extremely supportive. The Tri-Cities has been extremely supportive, and access points to Port Moody and all things we knew were coming as well. So it's been everything we could have hoped for and more.
Now, there's certain areas of the Lower Mainland that sort of there's pockets. Like, I mean, certainly the East Van area, for example, but it's relatively spread out. Here, you've got 4 pretty much in the same city block, which is a pretty unique concept. Do you think that's the kind of model that more communities or municipalities should consider following?
Well, it certainly turns this area, Brewers Row, into a brewery destination, really. The people come down here, they hit all 4 breweries. All 4 breweries are busy. It makes for a really great scene down here.
Now, the other thing, though, is important to note is that pretty much all 4 breweries are doing relatively different things. If you were all pretty much offering the same styles of beer, it might be a little bit more complicated. But again, do you sort of look at what's already there and brew around that, or do you just brew what you guys know best anyway?
Vern will be able to answer that probably best, but you know, I'm talking, so I'll answer.
That's how you guys work.
Yeah, you know what, every beer, whether it be a varietal of a beer style or varietal of a wine style, I mean, everybody's doing their own take on beers anyway, and ultimately, people's education levels around here are growing at such a rate that, you know, people are just happy to have quality beer to be able to access here. So I don't really know if we'd just be brewing our own thing.
Yeah.
Doing our own thing, brewing our own thing.
I think that's true with all 4 breweries down here. We brew what we want to brew, what we like to drink, you know, what we think our customers are, or what we hope our customers are going to like to drink. And, you know, everybody's got this huge variety. So what if there's some overlap and there's going to be some unique ones at each place and our own unique spin on a pale ale, perhaps? Maybe everybody's going to have that.
Is it consumer driven to the sense where if I'm in here on a regular basis and I'm a Hefeweizen fan and you don't offer one, if enough people bring that to your attention, is that something that you would suddenly go, you know, maybe we should look at doing a Hef?
Well, sure, if they bring their picket signs and they're threatening to throw rocks at us and stuff. Right. You know, we take criticism, advice, praise. We'll listen to it all. Some of it we'll follow up on. Some of it maybe we won't.
Now, Vern, you've been at this game a fair length of time as well, and you know, you were brewing beers at someone else's expense for a long time. Mm-hmm. Were you always in the back of your mind percolating, thinking, you know, one of these days I'm going to start writing the checks and do it for me?
Oh, for sure. It's always been a dream. I started brewing, Joe, in 1995. I got my first commercial brewing job, and within a couple months, I was hooked. Yeah. And I wanted my own place. It took a long time to get there. You know, found the right partners, and here we are.
What was the scene like in 1995? Because it's changed so dramatically, so rapidly. It's even kind of hard to picture. What was it like even going back like 20 years ago?
Yeah, well, when I started in 95, I started in the UK, so it was 97 when I got my first brewing job in the Lower Mainland, and it was small. You know, people that came in and drank our beers loved it and were keen. But it was, yeah, very small, and we could never understand why it wasn't growing like it did down in the States.
Sam, take us back to your early days, because I mean, you know, you were starting off with craft beer at a time when it was a very corporate beer world. Were there people immediately that were looking at you going, you're going to get killed in this, like, or were there believers early on?
There was definitely believers. I mean, there was high quality restaurants with high quality menus and wine lists and things that were kind of, you know, just based around the quality aspects of service, customer service, and food and beverage. But it wasn't everywhere. You know, it was a slow but steady growth, I guess. And certain people got it right away, and certain people really, really didn't. And you know, what was working for them was working, and you know, it wasn't something I had talked them out of. They either got it or they didn't, and more people got it.
You have been brewing, again, a lot of different styles, a lot of great beers over the years. When you do something at a new venture such as this, do you try and bring some of Vern's old favorites back, or is it kind of a conscious effort to kind of take it in a bit of a different direction?
Well, haven't brought any of Vern's old favorites back. But that being said, I've certainly learned a lot about recipe development over the past few years, and I know what I like and, you know, maybe what I don't like, and yeah, doing something different is absolutely part of it. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier about, you know, support from the community. This is, again, a pretty good model that other municipalities should follow, because I think Port Moody is totally on board with what it is all of you people are doing here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, from city council to local businesses to just residents, I mean, everybody's celebrating craft beer and celebrating our businesses, and it's really a great feeling. I mean, it's a huge relief watching the community walk in every day. Would we love to see it in every community? Yeah, of course, but I mean, we're biased, you know, having more breweries, hooray, but I'm not sure everybody cares as much as we do, but yeah.
Well, again, it's clearly a destination. Port Moody's become a destination. SkyTrain is just minutes away, or potentially minutes away once it gets up and running. So was business immediate? Like from the minute that you've opened up the door here, was it like booming?
Yeah, it was. We were lined up before the door opened on our first day, and that's been my biggest surprise in all of this. Has been how successful the tasting room has been.
Just quickly before we go, what are you known for here?
What are we known for? We're known for our beautiful picnic area and our wonderful beers.
Okay, what do we have in front of us here?
We've got our Dawn Pilsner and our Dusk Pale Ale. So German-esque in style for the Pilsner, but with some North American hops, just to give it our own twist. And the Pale Ale is definitely a hop-forward Pale Ale with Mosaic and Amarillo, but it's not resiny, it's not overly bitter. It's just got some nice hop flavors and aromas. Does
the neighborhood not that it need more? Can you anticipate more, or maybe it's time to maybe do something in the cider family, or maybe bring a distillery out here? Is that logical next step?
There was even before we opened talk of both of those happening down here on Murray Street. I don't know what's happened with that. It would certainly be nice to see a distillery or a cidery on the street, and you know, judging by how busy everybody's tasting rooms have been, I think there's room for another brewery. But we're happy to keep it the way it is.
No, I'm sure you are. Vern Lambourne, the brewmaster, and Sam Payne, the super co-executive, whatever you call yourself, from the Parkside Brewery on Murray Street in Port Moody. More BC Brew on Tap coming up.
Host hair services for Joe Leary and BC Brew on Tap, provided by Bailey Murphy of Avant-Garde Hair Studio in Yaletown at 1075 Mainland Street. For a list of services, call 604-688-1986 or online avantgardehair.com. Location services for BC Brew on Tap, provided by Mahoney & Sons at Canada Place. For a list of locations, visit mahoneyandSons.com.
We cover a lot of really cool stuff on the show. Check this out. Okay, Danny, so here we are in an area known as Brewery Creek. We're at the corner of 16th and Sophia. This is called Tea Swamp Park. This played an integral part in brewing in Vancouver. Tell us about the origins of the name Tea Swamp.
Yeah, definitely. Tea Swamp Park got its name from a huge bog that sat in this area in a clearing of what was a thick canopy of forest. Small lake, really, that extended from here all the way southeast to around Windsor Street. Out of this swamp flowed two really impressive creeks, China Creek on the east side and out of the west side, Brewery Creek, that eventually flowed down a 50-foot ravine and helped a lot of the brewers make their beers.
So we are standing in an area which would have been submerged in water, and going back to what, the late 1800s?
Yeah, mid-1800s all the way up to the late 1800s. This was a gathering place for the First Nations and other settlers along the banks of the swamp.
And from what I understand, there was a fair bit of brewing activity going on in this area back in the day.
Tons. It started around 1887 with J.K. Recab, had the City Brewery, a few others in between before a German saloon owner called Charles During came and opened the Vancouver breweries, and it was a massive brewery for back then.
Were there any regulations at the time, or was it just a kind of a free-for-all, and if you had the money, you could open up a brewery and make beer?
It was literally the Wild West. This is coming on the heels of the gold rush, which brought a lot of settlers and pioneers up this way, looking to settle and create businesses for themselves.
Okay, we're going to continue on the Brewery Creek tour. Thanks, Danny.
Awesome.
All right. Okay, so we started at 16th and Sophia. We're now at 7th and Scotia in the heart of Brewery Creek, and we're about to hit what is now Main Street Brewing. And Danny, this played a really significant role in the history of brewing in Vancouver.
Yeah, probably the biggest role. Vancouver Breweries was the largest brewer, pumping out close to 5,600 liters of beer a day.
So we were big drinkers back then.
We were big drinkers back then, but he did it right. You know, During built a wooden flume coming down what is now the street here to accelerate the water coming into the brewery. It actually was able to allow him to grind his own malts with a stone mill as well.
So before there was all this expensive real estate around here,
Yeah.
There was this old structure here, and this has been declared a heritage building by the City of Vancouver.
Definitely fully revitalized to its original state. I believe it was 93. It was first turned into a live workspace for artists, and now it's the home of Main Street Brewing.
So other than the fact that it's been restored to its pristine condition today, this was an original brewery, and we're going to go inside and take a look at the history of Vancouver brewing.
Sure, definitely. Let's
All
go
right.
in.
It's a great old historic building, Danny, and we're now in the tasting room, but it's so nice to see that people can come in this room and drink modern day beers, but have a throwback to the way it used to be.
It's amazing, yeah. It's a great piece of our heritage, and it connects what people are doing in the modern day with brewing beer to what was happening over 100 years ago. So you think about their output, 1,800 liter storage tanks that they had back in the 1800s, and here we are today, 2016.
Here, as we walk to the mouth of Brewery Creek, we stand in front of this amazing facility, which today is Red Truck Beer, but an actual brewery stood on this very premises way back when.
Yeah, definitely. It was all part of that Vancouver Breweries complex. So from up at 7th and Scotia, down the line here to the bottom of the creek, the Brewery Creek emptied into what was False Creek, come all the way back to the back wall of this building here. So crept up here with a lot of other industry and some other brewers right around the block here, including the Lion Brewery.
It's kind of interesting to see the transformation of this site, because apparently it started as a brewery in the late 1800s, then it became a slaughterhouse, and as you said, there were tanneries and all of that around in this neighborhood. It was a bus lines at one point, and it's back to being restored as a new brewery. So it's kind of cool to see how this area, even though it started off as that and it got way away from that over the course of time, it's back to being Brewery Creek again.
Yeah, it is amazing, and you got to give credit to the brewers that are looking at these pieces of real estate and figuring out that there's a connection there to the history, and able to get them producing more good beer and doing what they do.
Welcome to BC Brew on Tap. We're on the road in Murray Street in Port Moody. Now, this is one of the epicenters of great craft beer. We're here at Twin Sails Brewing. Cody Allman from Twin Sails. And who do we run into but Graham Witt from Parallel 49? It's Brew Day, and it's Collab Day. So for those maybe not familiar, collab for collaboration. How does that work? Is it like my house, my rules, or do you guys actually have to sit down and come to terms on things?
It's usually done over beers, as far as I know, yeah. So I think it's just, a couple guys get together, hanging out, having some beers, and they think, why not, let's do something together, right? So.
But is it that you're looking to do something kind of unique, or are you looking to do something traditional? Do you seek out the brewmaster, or is it just because you're having a couple of beers, maybe they kick in and you go, let's work together, man, let's do something?
I think it's usually got a prior relationship. A lot of brewers have like minds. So I know Dave from before, and we brew a lot of similar beers, or we brew similar process-wise. So he invited me to come down and brew a triple IPA, and we like to brew a lot of hops at Parallel 49. So I kind of jumped at the chance.
Now, you're in kind of a unique area out here in Port Moody because you're one of 4 breweries that are all on the same street here in Murray, which is kind of a pretty unique little collective. And of course, Graham, where you guys are located, you're in that Yeast Van area, and there's a fair concentration of breweries. But Cody, let me ask you about the Port Moody situation. How did it spring up? Was it just coincidental that you had all these people that decided to open breweries around the same time?
I mean, I don't know about the rest of the guys, but I mean, when we came out here, it was Yellow Dog was open, Moody Ales was just opening, so we were going to be the third. I mean, we expected a fourth might come along, but yeah, it was one of those things where we came out here because A, it's affordable. We looked in Yeast Van area, actually just down the street from these guys originally, but the pricing was so expensive out there to rent. So we ended up getting a decent rate out here, and the nice thing about Port Moody is the community is already aware of craft beer. They already know what it is. Yellow Dog was really hitting hard, and it was just a nice, easy transition into the brew scene out here. People really welcomed us, and yeah, it was awesome. I think Parkside's felt the same thing, if not even more.
And it's kind of one of those situations where you kind of encourage competition, because the more that you have to offer in the same area, the more people are going to want to be a part of that, correct?
With the SkyTrain coming on next month, I believe, they're saying the 20th. I'm not going to hold my breath, but yeah, it's going to allow a lot of more people to come down here, not have to worry about drinking and driving, which is awesome. So I think we're going to see a lot more people on the weekends, especially in the summertime, coming out here and be able to try the beers. And the nice thing about all 4 of us is we all offer something very different from each other. So you're really getting a unique experience at each location. So
now, we never really know what's maxed out. I would say kind of Port Moody is pretty well covered right now. It's certainly on the one street. But Graham, where you're at, there's obviously still room to grow, and there's a few more breweries in play. Do you think that people gradually will seek out areas? Like, for example, there's nothing in Coquitlam that I know of. There's only really one in Burnaby. Do you think maybe that people will stay away from the Port Moodies and East Vans and kind of leave them alone, going, they're set, maybe it's time to explore new territory? What do you think?
I don't know. There's still a few to open in East Van, I think. And I'm sure there's none of some I haven't heard of at all. But I think the model of having a tasting room, which everyone now you got to have, it lends itself very well to kind of get in that neighborhood. I mean, people go to a brewery and have the sample paddle of all these different beers. Eventually you run out at one brewery, you tried them all. But you spend that day wanting to try beers, so you can just walk from brewery to brewery. It's it works very well for your business model. And we get people coming from all the different breweries in our neighborhood to ours. And then, we encourage people who are leaving our place to go check out the other people in the neighborhood.
And both of your places, both Twin Sails and Parallel 49, also rely and utilize food trucks, which I think really kind of helps bring business to the place as well. Does that work?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, having the food trucks is great. It offers the customers an ability to come down here and actually, spend a longer period of time if they want. They can come down for dinner, actually have some food and some drinks as well. Otherwise, they're heading over here for dinner and then coming down. We can offer both things at once now, which is great. I mean, we got one food truck in particular that we literally will have people driving home down Murray Street, and they'll pull into our parking lot just to get food sometimes. It's hilarious. And while they're here, they'll pop in and grab a 6-pack to go. So it's really good for us. A lot of the food trucks are really well known out here as well. So people love stopping by and food. It's something unique and different that they don't normally get, right? So.
Cody, let me ask you about the city council and the zoning and all that. It seems to me that Port Moody is pretty much behind what you guys are doing. Is that fair to say?
Big time, yeah. They're very supportive. We've had a few changes that we wanted to make to some zoning that they've made the process very easy for us. I think we're really sparking some tourism in Port Moody that they weren't having before, which is big for them, especially with the SkyTrain line coming in. It's a lot of really good tourism revenue that they weren't expecting to have 2-3 years ago. So
Now, I don't want to turn this conversation political, but can the same be said with Vancouver City Council?
I don't know if we get as much love as Port Moody.
I don't think you do.
But it's inevitable with all the breweries in Vancouver now. They have to kind of support it, and they're adjusting things to try and make it a little easier for breweries. And the tourism that comes into Vancouver is huge for breweries now. When we go in our tasting room, I like to have a beer after work, and I'll kind of see who's in there. And I'd say 20% of the people sometimes are tourists from out of town. They'll have a conference for their business, and they're a beer guy. So after that, they go check out the breweries. So it drives a lot of people and money into the economy.
When you guys walk around, when you go to various bars and restaurants, are you sampling your beers to see how they taste in other venues, or are you more curious about what other people have available?
personally, as a sales guy, I always do it. I always want to make sure our beer tastes as good as it does at the brewery as it does at the bar. So I'll usually have one of mine, but that's when I stop. Because I love driving beers, I'm a beer guy, so if they've got something cool, if they've got something unique or something new that's out, I'm going to make sure I try that one first.
Now, you mentioned, Graham, because I think every time I've been at Parallel 49, I've seen you in the tasting room after work. Now, but do you use that sort of as a research tool as well? Like, are you curious to see how people are responding to your beers? Are you looking around? Are you soliciting feedback? Or people coming up to you because they know you're the brewmaster going, hey, man, have you ever thought of doing fill in the blank here?
Yeah, like in the taste room is the greatest place to check it out because you can put a small batch of something on and you can go get feedback, even from your staff who is working there or just actually talking to people. We make a salted caramel beer. We've made it for a while now, but that was just me sitting next to a woman in the bar, and she kind of hinted that I should make a salted caramel beer. And I thought it was kind of dumb. I was like, what? Actually, that actually with beer would work really well. So you do get feedback and ideas from just, hanging out with people and seeing what they kind of tastes are.
Okay, and one final question. What is it you guys are working on here today? What's the end product going to be called?
This one's called How About That? It's a triple IPA brewed with Mosaic, Citra, and Simcoe hops. So big beer, lots of flavor. It's gonna be a killer for wintertime.
And finally, if is it like one and done? Like, do you want to go through different breweries, or for example, if this one's a hit, would you want to work with Graham again, or are you trying to expand the base?
I think doing collabs, it's one of those things that it's just hanging out with friends. At the end of the day, Graham's down here because he wanted to come down and drink some beers. Like, it doesn't really have to do with the beer itself. It's more about the community and kind of doing something cool together. So
Very good. We're working on Brew Day here at Twin Sails Brewing in Port Moody. Cody Allman from Twin Sails and Graham Witt from Parallel 49. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. Yeah.
More BC Brew on Tap from Port Moody coming up.
Host hair services for Joe Leary and BC Brew on Tap provided by Bailey Murphy of Avant-Garde Hair Studio in Yaletown at 1075 Mainland Street. For a list of services, call 604-688-1986 or online avantgardehair.com. Location services for BC Brew on Tap provided by Mahoney & Sons at Canada Place. For a list of locations, visit mahoneyandsons.com.
And that is a wrap for our special edition of On the Road for BC Brew on Tap from the famous Brewers Row, Murray Street in Port Moody. Now, as always, we encourage you to enjoy all that BC has to offer, either on tap or in a glass, in a bottle. But we also ask you to please drink responsibly and always plan a safe ride home. Thanks for watching.
Clothing for Joe Leary and BC Brew on Tap supplied by Red Dragon Apparel, reddragonapparel.com. For BC Brew on Tap, this is Mike Schaefer.